Hey everybody, what's going on with the Montreal Canadiens regular season finally over, and the best part of the season heading down next week when the Montreal Canadiens will have the best lottery odds to win the draft lottery. It's time to look into some of what transpired this season, and we're going to look at today some of the players that improved the most under Martin St. Louis when he took over for head coach Dominique Ducharme. Now, I think the first player on this list is a relatively obvious answer, but it's obvious because of how much he improved under St. Louis and what he means to the future of the Montreal Canadiens, and that's none other than Cole Caufield, who finished the year with 23 goals after having only one under Dominique Ducharme, and I think that goes to show you how freely and how much more confident he was playing under Martin St. Louis, and it's not to say he wasn't doing that under Dominique Ducharme. There were some good aspects of his game, but to be completely fair, he was a different player under Martin St. Louis, and he gave him that confidence to be able to put the puck in the back of the net again. And I think a lot of that credit should go to St. Louis, but the majority of that credit should go to Caufield as we move forward into what likely should be a difficult season next year once again for the Montreal Canadiens. The development of Caufield and his continuation and maturity is going to be something that is going to be a major focus for the Montreal Canadiens organization, and Martin St. Louis appears to be the perfect coach in order to get the most out of Caufield. You could argue that Nick Suzuki deserves to be on this list as well with his offensive progression under St. Louis, but he did take a bit of a step back defensively under Martin St. Louis, and I think that's something they're going to have to work on moving forward, finding that offensive and defensive balance to kind of make Suzuki a 60 to 65 point centerman, but also able to shut down opposing top lines like a lot of people expect him to be able to do. But we're going to talk about Jeff Petry as the next player that improved a lot under St. Louis. You can tell that Jeff Petry and Dominique Ducharme just didn't jive one way or another. The system didn't really work for the Montreal Canadiens. We know what it did last year in the postseason, but I think that had more to do with the players and what they were doing in the dressing room rather than the actual system that the Montreal Canadiens were using during that playoff run. And to be honest, the system was just a little bit too confusing for these players, and a lot of them were too worried about screwing up and just being out of position. And I think a lot of that had to do with a lot of the failures that we saw to start the year for the Habs. And I think Jeff Petry was one of the benefactors of moving forward here under St. Louis. You could see it offensively, you could see it defensively in his gap control. He was just a much better player under St. Louis, and I think that the Montreal Canadiens will now be able to get fair value for him in a trade if they do decide to continue moving on from him in the offseason, but they could also keep him moving forward as Jeff Petry didn't close that door in his exit interview with them as the season ended. Now, the third player on this list didn't exactly have a banner start to his tenure with the Montreal Canadiens. He struggled to open the year and then dealt with some injuries, but he finished the year really strong under Martin St. Louis, and that is none other than Christian Dvorak. I think a lot of people expected Dvorak to bring more offense to the table than he actually was capable of doing. Much like he did with Arizona, there was no big offensive output with the Coyotes, but he was a solid number 2 or number 3 center, and I think the Montreal Canadiens would be wise to keep him in that 3-hole moving forward if they do decide to keep him in as part of the plans for the Montreal Canadiens center depth ahead of the 2022-23 season. I think that the Montreal Canadiens would be smart to do that because Dvorak has a lot more that he's capable of, and we saw that under St. Louis with more offensive production, a little more reliability defensively, and some prowess on the power play as a net front presence. And I think all of those things together are things that the Montreal Canadiens can use to move forward. And I think that if the Montreal Canadiens are fortunate enough to take a center with their top selection in the NHL draft, whether that's Logan Cooley or Shane Wright, they will likely be able to move forward as Nick Suzuki, Shane Wright, or Cooley, and then Dvorak as the number 3 center. And I think that is very strong center depth. If you move Poehling or Jake Evans to that 4th line center spot, the Montreal Canadiens might have went from having a lackluster amount of centers to a very good center ice depth. And I think that's what you have to do moving forward in today's NHL. Having that center depth, being able to compete down the middle of the ice is so vital to success. And you saw that this year with the inconsistency the Montreal Canadiens saw from their center ice position. That's it for me today from Cook's Corner. As always, let me know in the comment section down below what players you thought improved most under Martin St. Louis compared to under Dominique Ducharme. And also throw a like on this video as well. I'm Zach Cook. We'll see you later.